A veterans monument with all four sides needs to be in a place where people are going to see it, people are going to be able to come and reflect, and so I just wanted to bring it up to determine where we want to put it. It's a beautiful monument. I think it needs to be seen.
I really like your recommendation about the flagpole area. If we can get the volunteers that have, offered to help us with that project on board. I like the fact that it would be outside or out front and by the flagpole. I think
right. And I've discussed it with Public Works, and they said that right there in that kind of corner by where there's a scraggly tree up there, that way, that probably could be removed, and you could flatten out the ground there. It's going to be visible from Commercial Avenue. It's a nice area. It lends to the ability to put a bench out there and people could sit and reflect. So I thought that was a good area to put it. A lot of people have suggested that to me. So I just wanted to discuss it, see where everybody wanted to put it.
Chief, is that well out of the way for?
Yeah, anything out of the right of way is best. Put it on that property. That's, property.
I like that idea.
I do too. You just kicked out my other monument idea, but that's I do like that idea though. Does that monument currently have lighting where it's at right now?
The Veterans Monument?
Yeah, I can't.
I believe it's lit by the flagpole lighting, but I don't think it's got its own lighting, no.
Something to discuss later, but I think we'd need to have it lit.
We'd have to discuss whether or not we wanted to put some lights out there.
Yeah.
We could even, I don't know, we could maybe put some solar lights out there. Yeah. So is that where we want to end up?
Was there any other ideas out there?
Anybody have any other ideas?
I hate that we tore out all our shrubbery for nothing.
Would you like a formal motion or just direction?
I think
I need to talk to the people that are going to be moving it too.
yeah, we will have to talk to them to find out when we can do it. So I've gotten direction. I'll move forward with it.
Because we'll need a new base.
What's that?
We'll need a new base with that for sure.
Yeah, we'll need a new base. Yeah.
Before we move to the next topic, the current concrete patio that's out there, what will happen with that?
We're gonna have to remove that, right? Yeah.
Just bust it up and
No.
grass goes back there?
There's handprints all in that. That's all going to have to be saw cut out and put somewhere.
Okay.
Because
could we move it to where the new location is?
I do not know how or if they can move that base.
The vertical saw cut's not the issue, it's the horizontal saw cut. To get back in there, to cut those things out and make essentially tiles out of them to be able to move them. So
Yeah.
we'll have to figure out a crafty way to do that, maybe.
Did you have your hand up?
I was just going to suggest if we cut those handprints out, whoever you get to do the concrete, talk about setting those into whatever base that you do. But I think that the other ones can be redone. There's only a few that can't on there. So if we're not able to take all the saw hands out of there, if we could get a few that aren't able to, that would be great to put back in there.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on. Okay. The flower pot pots, banners, and Main Street beautification clarification. We've been getting calls from people wanting to know, what they can do to donate and things of that nature. There's not really a formal program in place right now that we can follow. And we need to make sure that it's in place and that responsibilities are set forth. Having staff take time out of their day to go water flowers or whatever, that's a time-consuming thing, and it needs to be. We need to make sure that we're using our resources in the best way possible. We need to try and get volunteers and establish a volunteer program for that. And so I want to find out how we need to move forward with this to where we can have a beautification program that we can be proud of. But it doesn't use the already taxed staff that we have.
I had a meeting week and a half ago with the downtown district regarding some upcoming events, and several of those business owners had expressed to me a desire to get involved. So that might be an organization to reach out to. Some of them were on the end of Main Street there by where the flower pots, or there at the Main Street Park where the flower pots, if my understanding, are proposed. So they might be willing to go out and water those as needed. I mean, the way it was presented to me at that meeting was, you just have to ask. We'll tell you if we can or if we can't, but we want to be involved, so you just have to ask. So that might be something. My other thought was, we have a fairly active FFA here in town. They do a lot of plant-based programs. They, have a plant sale every spring, so it might be something that would fit their course of study. I'm not sure how that would work over the summer, but it might be something to ask that, that department about.
Well, before we had like 60-some flower baskets. These are going to be 19 flower pots, which will hold their water longer. We have the truck and the pump, and I would think that even with Park and assistant, it would take no time just to do 19 pots on Main Street. I think that'll be a very minimal issue this year compared to trying to water up on the poles with 2 staff members is a lot more difficult. I think this will be a lot simplified.
And I think the flower pots are going to be a great beautification effort. I think they really are going to look good down there.
Is there a water line on that side of this hydrant or anything?
There's a frost-free hydrant by the caboose in the park right there next to the caboose.
So you just need some 300 or 400 feet of garden hose and
Would hit them on, but we also have that tank and a pump. And one hose would almost do, one hose, if you move the truck once, would probably almost hit those 19, because it's just in that one section.
right.
I think it would work. Or about 3 hoses at the hydrant, either way. I just don't think it'll be too bad. I'll call Wishing Well this week to make sure they hadn't changed their prices, because that's one of the things that, even if we do this in phases, in order to have those for plants to go in May, that'll have to be fairly soon.
I would like to reiterate the request that we put. I think it would be helpful for everyone if we had a line item for the beautification program. That way, when expenses come before the board, we can see exactly what money we're working with and what needs top priority.
We were talking about banners too, and I was thinking about that because we were looking at the UV protected vinyl, but with them being up on poles with the wind, I'm wondering if the cloth will withstand that a little better.
working on getting you the different ones put together in a booklet for you to go through and decide the prices and everything and how you want to do it. The last thing I talked to you about was the logo. Like how now it's every other one, like people decided what they wanted to get on the poles. So you had like somebody that has water tower, and you have somebody with bulldog, and then you have bulldog, 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 water tower, and it's very,
I think we need to be the same.
that way, like you'd have one section that maybe is downtown, like with a certain logo, then on Pearl Park, you'll have the logo, and then their business names on there. Because it's also a lot cheaper if you, by what I've seen and what I've priced and put in and everything, just like I did on the benches, it'll have everything on there for you to decide. Just unfortunately, I'm one person.
Thank you. That's why we need assistance.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yep. So, I guess we need to work on, getting this all together and figuring it out and putting it down on paper so that staff knows who to contact and so on. The community center roof. Randy has repaired some of the small leaks, but there are several that he is not able to get to, and it goes back to solar panels. He can't get to them because the solar panels are on the roof. The screws that they used to put the solar panels on the roof, the rubber grommets are all deteriorating and it's leaking under there. And so that's the problem with solar panels on a metal roof. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. We're going to be looking into what we can do and how we can do it. We've recently had some vandalism at Orchard Park. We sent out an email about that. The police department can't be everywhere. We have cameras down there. One of the cameras didn't work, wasn't working. So we're in the process of fixing that, by the way. We may need more cameras to, get different areas and a more full view of the parks areas. There's not a lot you can do about somebody who wants to vandalize property, other than prosecute them. And that's the other thing that we need to do. We need to prosecute. When people are caught vandalizing, we need to make sure that they're prosecuted. And if we can get that done, maybe that'll send a message that we don't want that. So I just wanted to bring that up. It's one of my pet peeves. We have a certificate of deposit that matured on February 20th at Farmers and Merchants Bank, and they want to know if we want to cash it in, move it to a money market, or renew it. The balance is $258,764.98. And if we rolled it over into the same kind of CD, we'd get 0.7% interest, a whopping 0.7%. However, if we rolled it into a 4-month CD, we'll have to renew it every 4 months, but we get 0.9% interest. If we put it into a 36-month CD, we get 1% interest. One of the problems with having it in a CD is it's not fluid, it's not easily accessible. There are penalties if we cash it in early. And so if we went to a 36-month CD, we can pretty much say that we're not going to touch it for 36 months and it's not gonna be available. So that's something to think about. If we move it to a money market, it will be more fluid and more available. The problem with that is, it gets 0.3% interest. So we need to decide what we want to do with this CD, because they're asking, right now, it's collecting 0. Once it matures, it collects 0. So we need to make that decision pretty quick so we can figure out what we want to do with this money.
Since we have to find some money for the building department, could we move part of it to a money market? Part of it to a 4-month CD? That makes it available in 4 months. Or is it earmarked for something else?
Right now, I don't think it's earmarked for anything. It's basically rainy day money.
I agree. I think putting it in the 4-month CD would be beneficial with the interest rate, but then also with the upcoming roof project that has a big question mark above it right now with where that's going to come in 4 months. That still puts us before the end of summer or fall to where if we need that money for the roof project, it would be available, but it would, earn some decent interest for the next 4 months, and then we can, hopefully by that point, we'll have a better idea where we're at. I like Alderman Veland's idea about pulling maybe part of it out to help cover that building department deficit.
If we were to pull part of it out, how much part do we want to pull? It's $258,764.98.
That falls in your lap.
That falls in my lap, I guess.
I think that's above our pay grade, and that falls on your.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Take the 52 and leave the 2
Okay,
like that.
I will take a look at it, and that's probably what, maybe take the 200,000,
Yeah.
put it in the 4-month CD, and then work with the other part.
That's kind of what I was thinking, was just put an even 200,000 in there. I think that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, and the last thing on my list, we have a couple of surplus vehicles. One sitting out there in the parking lot back there with a big bucket on it, hadn't moved in the 2 months I've been here. And then there's a SUV from the PD. We want to be able to, first of all, I've been told that Kevin Williams is willing to buy that bucket truck back at the price that we paid for it, because we bought it from him. I'm more than willing to get rid of it for that. And then the police SUV, we've had offers that were way under what it's worth, and so we want to put it on something like Gov Deals or whatever and try and get what it's worth. So I need to have those vehicles declared surplus and be able to get rid of them.
I think if you put the bucket truck on a GovNet or any auction, it's gonna tank. It's just not gonna do well.
It probably is not, and I think going back to Kevin Williams for the price that we paid for it is probably the best thing we're going to be able to do.
Even though we're still losing money because we had work done to it, but.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you gotta.
Sometimes you just got to cut your losses.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
Don't look back.
Yep.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go,
Is the police department vehicle we're talking about the one that was involved in the accident? Is that why? Okay.
yeah. And I believe that the bumper is in the back of it, and so it can be attached, it just hasn't been. We probably need to talk to somebody about that so we can get it on the, because if we could probably get a lot more money with it with the bumper attached than we can without it.
Why are we not,
So,
if the vehicle was in an accident, why? If the vehicle was in an accident, I'm a little confused. That's what insurance is for. Why are we not using the insurance to fix it?
That was declared total, so it's been replaced.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we declare the bucket truck and the PD SUV as surplus, selling the bucket truck back to Kevin Williams at the price it was purchased, and posting the police department SUV on surplus auction sites.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Alderman Beal.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell. Alderman Crawford.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
I have nothing more.
That's it?
Jason.
I have two things. One is, we sent our local limits evaluation for our pretreatment program back to DNR for their review last week. So that's the second time they've seen it, so fingers crossed that they give us the go and it'll come before this board at some point for a motion to, in support that you guys are gonna continue to fund that program. And then at another point, it'll come back for approval and adoption of the new local limits. The second thing is, last year we replaced one generator at the treatment plant. It was a 250 kW unit. It was about 65 grand to replace that. The other gen set, which takes care of the back of the plant, was an older generator put in when the plant expansion was done in 2002. That gen set, the control board went bad, and they don't make it anymore, so the generator people said they could retrofit one in. When they did that, they would have to re-retrofit a generator head on it to the tune of like $30,000, and there was no guarantee that it would even start whenever we did that. So Archer went to work to figure out what size gen set we needed to power all of our future expansion at the plant and not be undersized for current loading. They came back with a 450 kW generator, and that gen set is, are you ready for this number?
No.
Probably not.
$89,294 for a 450 kW gen set and a 600 amp transfer switch. So the gen set's about 84 and the transfer switch is about 5,000. The thing is the gen set is 40 weeks to delivery. So that puts us, if we order it this week, we're not gonna get it till Christmas-ish. So I don't really know what I need. Don's been checking into, I'll kick it back to him for funding. He's been looking at ARPA stuff, and part of it is, so really the only thing I think we would have to pay for this year is the gen set, or the transfer switch, because it's 20 weeks out. So they invoice us when it ships from the factory. So we would have to pay for that sometime in '22. And the gen set we could probably budget for and pay for in January of '23 and possibly use some ARPA funds.
And that's something that I've been looking at. It is something that we could most likely be able to use ARPA funds for. I just had a webinar today, as a matter of fact, on the use and reporting of ARPA funds, and it gave some pretty encouraging information. I don't know, I haven't really been able to digest it just yet, but it looks like we will be able to purchase something like the generator, and it will be justified, and that may be our saving grace in this point.
That would be wonderful.
Jason, are those installed prices?
No, it'll probably be another, so we'll do the concrete pad and exterior conduit ourselves, but we would have to have an electrician come in and set the transfer switch and then wire the gen set in. And on the 250 unit, it was like $7,000 to do that. So I would expect it to be close to the same with this, in that $6,000 to $8,000 range for install, for just the electrician portion of it. And then we would do the concrete and the conduit ourselves in-house. Nick can do that.
How many hours a year do those usually get on the meter?
Well, it's kind of one of those things where it's kind of like insurance.
I understand.
They probably run more just cycling, doing their tests
Okay.
on the first Monday of every month than we actually do. We do load test them twice a year to make sure that they will come up, the transfer switches work, and that they will power what they need to power at that point. But it's kind of one of those things to where, they may run. We had a power outage at the plant not too long ago, and I think the front genset ran for 2 or 3 hours before they got it back going. But it's got a lot more hours on it, just exercising every month than.
And it would be far worse not having it than.
Yes, because this one, so the front genset runs the influent, or not the influent, but the bar screens, the peak flow pump station, and the ditch rotors at ditch number 1. So the back genset would run the influent pump station, all 3 clarifiers, the UV, our digesters, and the second ditch. So without this genset and no power, then the influent pumps don't even run. So there's any of the water that comes into the plant goes into the peak flow and doesn't really, it just kind of settles out for its 12-hour detention time, and then it goes out without being through the full process, so.
Do we have a backup plan? Like, is it not working at all right now? Like, it is completely
It is
non-functional?
not working at all.
So while we're waiting 40 weeks, do we just?
So that's the next step, is to reach out to some, like United Rentals, K&K Supply, Missouri Rural Water Association has backup standby generators.
Okay.
So we would enter into a mutual aid kind of type agreement with them that if something happened in this 40-week process, that we would get first dibs on one of those generators, is the hope. So that's my next step, is to reach out to those this week and see if I can come up with some sort of a plan for that.
Okay.
That's one thing that Jason and I have been talking about. It's critically important. I mean, if we, God forbid, we have some kind of a disaster where we're out, power's out for 2 weeks, we need to have something in place. And so we've been talking about that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Ward?
Finally have an applicant to present to the board for hiring. Michael Alexander Burgess. He's a 10-year veteran. He's worked with 3 other agencies. He's currently completed his physical and drug screening, and then he takes his psychological exam. On a side note, I did not know the psych exams are only good for 6 months. Apparently they're not good forever, so he shouldn't have no problem. He's taken 3 of them with 3 different departments, so he should be okay. Requesting to hire him contingent on the passing of all those tests with a start date of hopefully first part or mid-April.
Make a motion, we approve this hire, chief's recommendation, pending psych evaluation.
Second.
Can I ask a quick question? In replacement of an officer that we just, so is he coming in at the starting pay?
Yes, he'll be coming in starting pay at $23 an hour. We have not discussed or anything in our pay scale about adding any type of pay differential for anybody that's got experience. We haven't discussed that.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, may I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Wheeler.
Aye.
Alderman Townsend, absent. Alderman Sykes.
Aye.
Alderman Rosser.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Veland?
I don't have anything at this moment for planning and zoning.
Do any of the board members have anything?
I have a couple of things. 2 months ago, I shared an email with you people about the burn at the airport. Can I get your thoughts on that?
And you don't have the information, do you?
I am not aware
The
of it, no.
controlled burn at the airport
Okay.
to burn off the dead vegetation
Uh-huh.
and just make it look better, for one.
Mr. Alderman Veland had some information about that. I think it got lost in the shuffle with Russell Ross.
Yes.
So he hasn't been able to see that yet.
Yeah, there's an organization around here that will aid and assist and teach landowners how to do a controlled burn. They won't, however,
Start
light
it.
the match to the ground. That's something that,
I've lit a few matches in my day.
so they would come in and train whoever we wanted, and their organization would come in and assist,
Okay.
which is probably,
Do you happen to know who this organization is, or?
it's been 2 months. I
Okay.
would have to go
All right.
back and check.
But it's in the email?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll find it.
And they do a controlled burn at Shaw's Garden in Gray Summit. They've done a controlled burn for the city of New Haven. And so I just wanted to get their thoughts, because I have a lot of respect for fire. I won't burn anything out at the farm unless the ground's covered with snow. I just don't take that chance, but I want to get their thoughts on it.
I think there's definite benefits to it. Have we spoken with our fire department, their
They
level
will
of,
not back you up, they won't come over there unless somebody calls them that it's out of control.
that it's out of control?
They
Okay,
have nothing to do with it.
right. That was my question, was, just one, what their feelings were, and then two, obviously, some type of emergency response needs to be in place. But did you say that they would use it to train landowners, so like it would be open to the public to come and learn from them while they were burning the airport property?
That's possible. More it's for the landowner themselves.
Oh,
And how it
okay.
works, it's like you help me build your house and I'll help you build the next one, and
Okay.
they all get together on a weekend or whatever it is and they go burn somebody's property off,
Okay. My first thought was, have we checked with MIRMA to see what their feelings are on a controlled burn, and also the IDA board, because I would think we would need their permission before we set fire to the property. I mean, I'm definitely not opposed to it. I feel like there's benefits to the entire ecosystem in an area when you do a controlled burn. But I think we just need to talk to a few more people, key players in that, but.
This is just off the top of my head, but I thought Myrna would just say, no way. Because I really think that's the way it's going to go, but I don't know that for sure.
I would hate to just do it and then try to ask forgiveness later if it would get out of control and they wouldn't cover.
No, we're not
So I
gonna do
feel
that.
like,
No, we can't just do it.
even if we feel like they're gonna
As
say
fun as it
no,
might be, no, I
even if
don't
we-
think we're gonna do that.
no. So even if we feel like they're
But we
gonna say
will.
no, then I
Yeah,
feel like
I'll
it's
check
just,
with
that's the end of it.
Yeah,
Maybe even call the city of New Haven and ask them.
Yeah.
what
That would be my
happened.
first question before I get on board, is to know what MIRMA says.
And the IDA gave us permission to handle the small stuff like that.
Okay.
Should have their emailed signatures
Okay.
before Travis left, I do believe.
Okay.
But we do have to consider some kind of brush hogging or maintenance at some point in time.
we're gonna have to maintain the airport.
Yes.
Okay, so Mike, you want to comment before I go on?
I'm just in agreement with you guys that we need to check with Myrma and move forward from there. I think that's step one.
Okay. Now, the other question I had was for you, Mr. Stolberg, because I missed the last meeting and Kim Miller was let go. That wasn't your recommendation to the board, was it? To get rid of her?
It was, I presented the options. At that point, they asked me what my recommendation was. I gave it, and it was discussed further, and we decided that that was not the way to go, that we were going to not recommend a leave of absence.
Okay, your recommendation was a leave of absence?
Yes, a short leave of
Above and
absence.
beyond her family leave act?
Correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other board members? I don't have anything this time. I think everything under the sun got covered here.
I apologize for the long meeting.
Does anyone from the audience have anything they wish to address to the board?
That's not what we've been discussing. Okay, so, my
Name.
name once again is Ryan LaRocca. I live at 125 Kitchell Street. The reason I'm here this evening, I have two issues I'd like to discuss. The first thing that I need to get off my chest is there's a gentleman, if you want to use that word. His name is Kevin. I don't know his last name. I want to say he lives at 125 Kitchell Street. The house he's currently living in my opinion, it should be condemned. I was informed here recently that he came up to get a permit to do a remodel. He has no work, he has water and electric, but he has no toilet. And he's defecating in 5-gallon buckets. And he takes his urine and his feces, and he takes it outside to a burn pile in his backyard. And he dumps his feces and his urine into this burn pile. And then he sets fire to that plus all of his trash. He can't afford trash, so he literally burns all of his trash. Many of the neighbors get upset. He's been called out by the fire department on 2 occasions that I know that he's been issued tickets for. He continues to have fires. Many times after he starts these fires, he leaves. He'll go somewhere, and the fire got out of control. One time the fire department came on, it was almost about ready to catch his house on fire. The inside of his home, from what I see from the outside, most of it doesn't have any drywall. It's just wooden studs. I don't think he has much flooring in there. I think his actual floor is the subfloor, the subfloor. He continues to come over to my neighbor. I tried to get my neighbor to come up here tonight. He's scared to death. He won't come up. He goes over to my neighbor Adrian's house, and he usually does it at night. And he'll go over to my neighbor's house, and he brings over these 5-gallon buckets and fills them up with water without my neighbor knowing in the middle of the night. So my neighbor has gone to shutting off his water at the main of his house, said he can't do this anymore. Now, if we set that aside, his house is crumbling. I don't know how he's still living in there. I want to set that aside. Earlier today, this officer right here, Officer Burton, responded. Quite strange situation happened. I don't know where I want to start with this, but he has a lot of mental issues. There's a good Kevin, there's a violent